In verbal reasoning, you have so many questions to answer in just a short time frame. You're rushing through practice questions, trying to get as many done, and then you see your results at the end of a mock score, and it's not the ones you were hoping for. If you feel like that, I completely understand. I was in this exact same situation a year ago when I was sitting my UCAT, and often you feel really defeated, really low, because you're not hitting the scores you want to. In this video, I'm going to be telling you the exact techniques and strategies that you need to be using if you want to improve your UCAT scores. They're going to help you go from slightly lower verbal reasoning scores and increase them so you're doing better because you're using the right techniques to reduce your time taken to answer each question. Hi, I'm Loveleen. I sat the UCAT last summer, got a score of 2,950 Band 2 and a score of 710 in the verbal reasoning section. Initially when I started out, I also had low scores, and it took time and practice and learning the right techniques and strategies to be able to get that higher score, and I want to help you with that too. In this two-part video, I'm going to be talking about all the different ways that you can improve your verbal reasoning scores. I'm going to go over the 5 different question types, all the techniques that you need to know to be able to increase your score, and going over different timing techniques and strategies to help you, again, reach that high score. I also have free UCAT notes which are available, and you can email me for full access to those to see everything on how to answer not just verbal reasoning, but all the different question types across all the different sections. Let's start off by taking a look at what verbal reasoning is and why is it even important if you're applying for medicine or dentistry. So the verbal reasoning section is the first section in the UCAT. You will have 22 minutes to complete 44 questions. So along these 44 questions, each of the 4 questions will correspond to one passage. So you have 11 passages in total, and one of those passages will correspond with 4 questions that you need to answer. So this gives you around 30 seconds per question, which is why verbal reasoning is so time constrained. Now, in terms of why you actually need to know verbal reasoning, initially when you're doing it, it might seem a little bit odd as why is this might be important in medicine or in dentistry and how these skills translate. The reason why verbal reasoning is important in medicine and dentistry is because of the skills it has that are transferable from this. The idea of speed reading and being able to collect information quickly, read it once and remember it, they're all important in medical and dental fields, as you need to be able to read, for example, patient charts, patient information, quickly go over other doctors or other healthcare professionals' notes, for example, to be able to understand and learn about a patient. And I think just understanding why this skill is useful in the long term makes it a little bit easier to learn in the moment. Starting off with, let's look at how you should be approaching verbal reasoning questions. So, when you're approaching the questions, the first thing that you always should be doing is reading the question first. Again, this is contradictory to probably everything you've been told to up until now, where you always read the passage first before going into questions. In the UCAT, because you are so time constrained, you need to go straight onto reading the question. The question will be telling you exactly what to focus on. So from the question, you can figure out what type of question it is from the 5 question types that we'll be going over, and you can figure out what you need to look for in the text. By reading the question first, you know exactly what to be focusing on. And this leads on to the second thing about approaching the question. So once you've read the question, from the majority of the question types in the UCAT verbal reasoning section, you will be able to identify a keyword. This is basically a word within the question that has some sort of importance and that will help to lead you to the answer. This may be in the question or it may be in one of the answer options. You need to become really good at selecting a good keyword so that you can quickly scan the text for that keyword and then answer the question. So, for example, if you've been given a question and you've been given 4 answer options, you need to pick a keyword that is easy to find. This means that it's not repeated very often in the text, it is important to the question, and it's also easy to find. So when we say easy to find, it could be a number, it could be a place, it could be something with a capital letter or a special symbol, as these will stand out to you in the text. Once you've found that keyword and you've decided what that is, based off just the question alone, you will skim read the text. When you're skim reading the text and you see that keyword, you will quickly read around that keyword and try to work out your answer. By reading around the keyword, you should be able to work out what your answer is and put it as one of the answer options between A, B, C, and D. Once you have decided which of those answer options it is, just select it and move on, as you do not have time to go over and check if all the other answer options are correct. When you are looking for a good keyword, it is important to bear some things in mind. Number 1, you might have synonyms of that keyword, so make sure you're checking for synonyms whilst you're skimming the text as well. Number 2 is that you might have to make some inferences. So the keyword may not explicitly be stated, or sometimes the text say things in a little bit of a more confusing way. The third point is to remember that you might have to pick a different keyword. So if the keyword is repeated too often or if it's not getting you the information, if you have the time, pick a different keyword during the question. Let's start off with the first question type that you'll be getting in the UCAT. So this is the easiest type of question that you can get, but they also come up the least frequently. Only around 10% of the questions in the verbal reasoning section are this type of question. And this is called the true, false, can't tell questions. So for these questions, you will be given a statement, and then you will be given 3 options: true, false, and can't tell. So again, when you're approaching these questions, always remember to read the question first, and from the statement, you will be picking a keyword. So that keyword, again, it should be something which is easy to find, quickly to look at. You scan the text, you'll read around that keyword, and based on the information that's in the text, you will decide if the statement is true, because that information is either stated in the text or you can infer it. If it's false, then that means either it's being contradicted in the text, or it is because the statement is over-exaggerating what it's saying. And option 3 would be can't tell, is if you're unsure because there's not enough information provided in the text for whether or not that's true. Learning the difference between false and can't tell is definitely something that comes with practice. So the more practice that you do, the easier it will get to understand when an option is can't tell and when it's false. The second question type is something called type 1 statements. In type 1 statements, the way the question is structured is that you will be given a stem, which is basically asking the question, and this will be specific and be asking about a specific thing. Then you'll be given your 4 options A, B, C, and D, each of which essentially answer that stem. What you need to do for these types of questions is look at the stem and try to find a specific keyword from that. Because that question is asking for a specific thing, you can work out what the common theme between all 4 of those different question options are to pick that keyword. Then again, you'll be using the keyword approach, skimming through the text and trying to find an answer. These questions are a little bit more time consuming, of course, because you've got 4 options to decide between. The third question type that you will get is something called type 2 statements. Now these are significantly harder than the previous 2 question types, and the reason for this is because of the way the question is structured. So in the actual question, you won't be given a topic, you'll just be given a very generic question. Then you will be given the 4 answer options. Now these 4 answer options, they will typically be 4 completely unrelated statements, and you will have to work out which of those is the correct answer. So this means essentially you're having to check through all 4 different answer options in the text to work out which one is correct. And this of course can be very time consuming. So the best approach for these is to always, again, read the full question and then look at all 4 of the answer options. To save the most time, you need to assess which of those 4 answer options are most sensible to start off with, because as soon as one of them is correct, you'll pick that answer and move on. So now I'm going to tell you how you can assess which of the answer options are best to look at first. So once you've read all 4 of the statements, you essentially need to work out which one is most likely to be correct. Remember, we're never ever using external knowledge for the UCAT, so we're just going to be looking at based on the type of language that the question is using. So the statements which often have extreme language, so this is words like never, always, and forever, words which are more extreme, typically these statements are often less likely to be correct. So this means you want to be using and looking at the statements which often have softer language, such as maybe, sometimes, occasionally, as these are more likely to be correct. The second tip to help you decide which statement to check is correct first is to look at the keywords that are in all of the options. The ones that have keywords which are more easy to identify and look for, pick those ones first. And then you're just going to work through these. You quickly essentially rank those 4 options to see which one is most likely to be correct, which one's least likely to, and then you'll just use the keyword approach again. So for each of the statements, you're going to pick out a really good keyword from them and do that approach as fast as you can. Initially, this will feel really slow, but you will get faster and better at doing that because the ranking of the statements will significantly help to reduce your time, so you're not wasting time going in order of A, B, C, D to see which one's correct. Once you've ranked them, hopefully the first 1 to 2 that you go through will be correct, and that saves you so much time than individually checking all of the options. The final point that I would just like to mention is on the note of timing. As you have 30 seconds per question, it's really important to just be ruthless with your timing. If you are spending too long on one question, you're going to have a knock-on negative impact on the rest of your questions. So in the situation where you are genuinely confused and you've spent 30 seconds on the question, guess the option from the ones that you still have left, flag that question and move on to the next question. Then at the end, if you do have time, you can come back and work through those questions slowly. This is really, really important, again, to make sure that you're still getting that high score, as losing a few marks isn't going to significantly negatively impact your score. If you are taking too long on one question though, it's going to have a knock-on impact on the rest of your questions and bring your overall mark a lot lower. If you still like access to my free UCAT notes on all the different sections, again, please email me for that. And also don't forget to check out part 2 where I detail the rest of the different question types and timing strategies into verbal reasoning.